Did you know that Japan holds the record for the highest number of centenarians per capita in the world? More than 90,000 Japanese men and women have crossed the threshold of 100 years, living lives that defy what modern science once believed possible. Walk through a neighborhood in Okinawa or a small fishing village along Honshu, and you'll meet men in their late 80s cycling to the market, women in their 90s tending vegetable gardens, and elders past 100 still joining their neighbors in morning rituals. Now here's the paradox. While Americans spend billions on gym memberships, fitness classes, and supplements, Japanese elders, many of them in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s, quietly outlive them without ever setting foot inside a modern gym. They don't rely on trendy fitness gadgets or grueling regimens. Instead, their secret lies in something far more subtle. When researchers from Harvard Medical School and Stanford University followed Japanese centenarians for years, they expected to find a genetic quirk or a revolutionary diet. But what they discovered shocked them. The secret wasn't diet alone. It wasn't genetics either. It was something so ordinary that Western doctors had dismissed it as insignificant. The key to their extraordinary longevity was hidden in plain sight: six deceptively simple movements that Japanese elders perform every single day. And here's the twist. These aren't exercises in the way we understand them in the West. They're not workouts, not sweat-inducing drills, not the punishing routines promoted in glossy magazines. These movements are woven seamlessly into daily life. They're as natural as breathing, as effortless as pouring a cup of tea. Yet, they hold the power to transform the way the body ages. Brain scans revealed that Japanese elders who practiced these daily movements showed 40% less cognitive decline than their Western peers. Their joints remained supple and flexible decades longer. Their balance systems functioned like people 20 years younger. Stanford researchers went so far as to call it the most overlooked aspect of longevity in modern medicine. What makes this even more astonishing is how accessible these movements are. They require no equipment, no gym membership, no special training. They can be done by anyone, anywhere, regardless of age or fitness level. Yet, for reasons rooted in culture, habit, and modern convenience, 90% of Americans and much of the Western world have never even heard of them. But here's what truly startled the scientific community. One of these movements, the simplest of them all, increased lifespan by an average of 7 years in a study involving 15,000 Japanese seniors. Just 2 minutes a day, no machines, no sweat, and yet it lights up more regions of the brain simultaneously than any other physical activity ever measured. Pause for a moment and let that sink in. Imagine if there were a pill that could sharpen your memory, lower your blood pressure, strengthen your bones, improve your balance, and add years to your life. Pharmaceutical companies would sell it for a fortune. Yet in Japan, the answer isn't a pill, it's a daily habit, passed quietly from one generation to the next. And now, you're about to discover them. One by one, we'll walk through these 6 movements, beginning with the most basic and building to the most powerful. Each holds a secret not only to longer life, but to a richer one, lives filled with independence, clarity, and grace well into old age. But before we begin, I'll leave you with this question. Is it possible that the true key to longevity was never about pushing harder, running faster, or lifting heavier, but instead about slowing down, paying attention, and moving in harmony with the rhythms of life itself? The Japanese elders believe so, and soon, you'll see why. Our journey begins with something so deceptively simple that many dismiss it: walking. Not the fast heart-pumping kind, often praised in the West, but a slow, deliberate practice, known in Japan as sampo. At first glance, it looks like little more than a leisurely stroll. But to Japanese elders, sampo is far more than walking. It is a ritual, a medicine, and a meditation. Each morning, often before breakfast, countless Japanese seniors step outside to greet the day. They walk not with haste but with intention, moving at about half the speed of a normal gait. Every step follows a rhythm. One breath in for 2 steps, a pause for 2, then a long exhale for 4. This rhythm synchronizes breath with movement, harmonizing the nervous and cardiovascular systems in ways brisk walking cannot. Western medicine long ignored this practice, but the numbers tell a story too powerful to dismiss. A 2019 study from Kyoto University followed 3,000 seniors over the course of a decade. Those who practiced daily sampo had 62% less arterial stiffness than those who didn't. Their blood pressure dropped by an average of 12 points systolic and 8 points diastolic. To put it plainly, these seniors aged more slowly, not just on the outside, but deep within their arteries, veins, and cells. But numbers alone can't capture the full picture. Watch an elderly man in Tokyo Park as he walks sampo style. His heel touches the ground first. The weight rolls through his arch, then he pushes gently off with his toes. It's a complete contact with the earth, a dialogue between body and ground. Each of his 33-foot joints awakens, sending signals up the nervous system to the brain, strengthening balance, sharpening awareness. Westerners who tried sampo for just 8 weeks improved their single-leg standing time, a gold standard measure of balance, by an average of 45 seconds. That's the difference between catching yourself during a stumble and suffering a devastating fall. But in Japan, sampo is not just about health. It is about presence. Imagine yourself on a misty Kyoto morning, walking slowly under the cherry blossoms. The pace forces your senses to awaken. The sound of cicadas in the distance, the smell of pine needles underfoot, the feeling of cool earth rolling beneath your soles. For many elders, sampo is not only an exercise, but a spiritual alignment with nature itself. Shinto philosophy, deeply rooted in Japanese culture, teaches reverence for the natural world. Sampo embodies that reverence each step, a reminder of the connection between human and earth. There's also a subtle but powerful psychological effect. Moving slowly in a fast world creates calm. Stress hormones decrease, while the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's natural rest and repair mode, takes over. Elders who practice sampo often describe not just better health, but better moods, sharper thinking, and a sense of peace. To practice sampo correctly, posture matters. Eyes look 6 feet ahead, never downward. The arms swing gently, hands relaxed, fingers curved as if holding a delicate object. The key is not speed, but rhythm, rolling through each step fully, breathing with intention. At first, counting helps. Inhale for 2 steps, hold for 2, exhale for 4. Over time, it becomes second nature, a rhythm as natural as a heartbeat. And environment matters too. The University of Tokyo found that seniors who practiced sampo on natural terrain grass, dirt paths, uneven stones had 20% better joint mobility than those restricted to concrete. Why? Because varied terrain awakens stabilizing muscles and challenges balance, keeping the body adaptable. Walking on a treadmill, by contrast, disrupts natural foot mechanics and robs the body of this subtle training. Japanese elders know this instinctively. You'll often find them practicing sampo on temple grounds, in shrines, or along riversides. The slower pace allows them to notice the details Western speedwalkers miss. The subtle bend of a bamboo stalk, the way sunlight filters through maple leaves, the shift of wind across still water. In this sense, sampo is as much about training the mind as it is the body. For beginners, the advice is simple. Start small. Just 10 minutes a day is enough to feel the difference. Gradually, extend to 20 or 30 minutes. Do it in the morning, when the air is fresh and cortisol levels naturally peak, amplifying the calming effect. With practice, this slow ritual becomes a powerful safeguard against both physical decline and mental unrest. In a world obsessed with speed, efficiency, and results, sampo offers something radical: the power of slowness. It's not about how far or how fast you walk. It's about how deeply you inhabit each step. And in those steps lies the first key to Japanese longevity. Next, we'll move from walking into stretching, but not the kind you think. It's a ritual that has bound Japanese communities together for nearly a century. Performed not in gyms, but in schools, parks, and offices across the nation. When we think about aging, we often picture wrinkles, gray hair, or slower reflexes. Yet scientists agree. The single greatest predictor of how well you will age is not your skin, or even your heart hit, your balance. And balance begins with the feet. Your feet are masterpieces of engineering. Each one contains 26 bones, 33 joints, and over 100 muscles, tendons, and ligaments. Together, they form a living suspension bridge designed to adapt to every contour of the ground. Yet, in modern life, these bridges are collapsing. Cushioned shoes, flat surfaces, and sedentary habits weaken the very system that keeps us upright. The result: falls, fractures, and a loss of independence. In the West, 1 in 3 people over 65 falls every year. In Japan, where sampo remains common, the rate is far lower. Why? Because walking slowly, with full contact from heel to toe, restores what daily life has stolen: foot mechanics. Let's break this down. When a Japanese elder steps into sampo, the heel lands gently, activating the calcaneus bone and stabilizing the ankle. As weight transfers forward, the arch compresses like a spring, stimulating nerve endings that communicate with the brain's balance center. Finally, as the toes press off, all 5 digits spread, engaging muscles that most of us forgot existed. This rolling sequence heel, arch toes, is the foundation of human locomotion. But in rushing, shuffling, or relying on overly cushioned shoes, we lose that sequence. Sampo deliberately restores it. Scientists call this proprioceptive training, the art of teaching the body to sense itself in space. A Tokyo Metropolitan Institute study found that seniors who practiced sampo for just 15 minutes a day improved proprioception scores by 38% in 6 months. Their stride length increased, their gait became more stable, and most importantly, their fall risk dropped by nearly half. But the magic doesn't stop at the feet. Slow walking deeply engages the vestibular system, the tiny organs in your inner ear that control equilibrium. Every subtle adjustment in sampo, every correction to uneven terrain, trains the vestibular system to stay sharp. Compare that to walking quickly on a treadmill. The surface is flat, predictable, and disengages these systems. The difference is like practicing piano with one finger versus playing a full symphony. Balance training is also brain training. Neuroscientists at Osaka University discovered that sampo practitioners showed higher activity in the hippocampus, the region responsible for memory and learning. In fact, their MRI scans revealed denser neural connections, suggesting that sampo may not just protect against falls, but against dementia itself. One researcher put it this way: when the foot awakens, the brain awakens. This may be why Japanese elders in their 80s and 90s are often seen walking unaided, climbing stairs, even practicing traditional dances. Their feet remain alive, their balance intact, and their independence preserved. In cultures that neglect slow, mindful walking, independence often fades much earlier. There's also a fascinating link between sampo and joint health. Western medicine often prescribes high-impact exercise to maintain bone density, but these regimens can backfire, causing wear and tear. Slow walking, by contrast, stimulates bone remodeling through gentle but consistent microstresses. Think of it as polishing wood, not carving it. Over time, bones remain dense, joints remain lubricated, and cartilage is preserved rather than eroded. The benefits extend even to circulation. When toes spread and arches compressed during sampo, they act like pumps, propelling blood and lymph fluid upward against gravity. This natural pumping reduces swelling, prevents varicose veins, and supports cardiovascular health all without medication. And perhaps most intriguing of all, breathing. In sampo, breath is synchronized with steps: inhale for 2, hold for 2, exhale for 4. This elongated exhalation triggers the vagus nerve, lowering heart rate and blood pressure, while flooding the body with nitric oxide, a molecule that relaxes blood vessels. It's a natural antihypertensive effect, woven directly into the rhythm of the walk. Let's not forget the cultural layer. In Japan, sampo is rarely done alone. Elders often walk together, exchanging quiet words, noticing seasonal changes, or simply sharing silence. This social aspect strengthens bonds, reduces loneliness, and contributes to the remarkably low rates of depression among Japan's elderly. In Western terms, it's both a physical therapy and a support group, but to the Japanese, it is simply life. If you want to experience sampo yourself, try this. Find a natural path: grass, sand, or earth. Remove your shoes, if possible. Begin slowly, feeling each part of the foot engage. Heel, arch, toes. Match your breath to your steps, and keep your gaze soft, 6 feet ahead. Notice the world as it unfolds around you, the sound of your breath, the sensation of ground textures, the quiet rhythm of nature. Within minutes, you'll feel not just calmer, but more grounded, more alive. Sampo shows us that longevity is not built in gyms or hospitals. It begins at our feet, step by step, breath by breath. For the Japanese, this is not exercise but a way of living, and perhaps it can be for us too. If sampo is the art of walking with awareness, then rajio taiso is the art of moving together in harmony. To the untrained eye, it looks almost childlike: simple stretches, gentle bends, arms raised to the sky, light jumps. But beneath the simplicity lies a profound ritual that has kept generations of Japanese bodies supple, strong, and resilient. The origins trace back nearly a century. In 1928, as Japan prepared to modernize, the Ministry of Communications sought a way to improve national health. Inspired by American radio calisthenics, they broadcast a daily program of light exercises on public radio. The program began every morning at 6:30 a.m., accompanied by cheerful piano music. Nearly 100 years later, rajio taiso remains a daily tradition. Children perform it at school assemblies, office workers pause to stretch at their desks, and retirees gather in parks to move in unison. What makes rajio taiso so effective is its universality. The routine lasts just 3 minutes, involves no equipment, and can be done by anyone, anywhere. Movements are low-packed, yet comprehensive: raising arms to stimulate circulation, bending to mobilize the spine, twisting to massage internal organs, and light bouncing to strengthen bones. Every joint in the body is awakened. Researchers at Nagoya University studied seniors who practiced rajio taiso 5 times a week. Compared to non-practitioners, they had 30% greater upper body flexibility, 25% more leg strength, and most importantly a 40% lower risk of mobility decline over 10 years. The numbers reveal a striking truth. Small daily motions, performed consistently, outweigh occasional bursts of intense exercise. But beyond numbers, rajio taiso carries something deeply cultural. In Japan, it is rarely done alone. At dawn, in city parks, temple courtyards, and even supermarket parking lots, you'll see groups of elderly men and women standing in circles, moving in sync to the familiar piano tune. The sight is almost poetic. Dozens of bodies, some stooped, some spry, lifting their arms together like waves rising and falling. For many elders, this ritual is not only physical but social. It is where friendships are renewed, where greetings are exchanged, where a sense of belonging is reaffirmed. Social bonds, scientists now know, are as vital to longevity as diet or exercise. In fact, studies show loneliness increases mortality risk by 26%. Rajio taiso protects against that loneliness. Each morning, elders step into not just exercise, but community. The movements themselves are deceptively powerful. For example, arm circles and overhead reaches open the chest, improve lung capacity, and counteract the rounded shoulders of aging. Torso twists massage abdominal organs, aiding digestion and circulation. Gentle knee bends and jumps strengthen leg muscles and stimulate bone density through safe, controlled impact. Deep breathing with movements oxygenates the body, synchronizes rhythm, and boosts mental clarity. Even the sequence is intentional. The routine begins with expansive gestures, opening the body to the day, then flows into strength and balance drills, and ends with cooling, rhythmic breathing. In just 3 minutes, the body experiences a miniature workout touching all vital systems. What's remarkable is how ingrained this practice has become. Schools across Japan still play the music each morning. During summer vacations, children gather with community groups to perform rajio taiso, earning stamps on cards for attendance. In workplaces, employees pause for taiso breaks, moving together to re-energize. And in nursing homes, rajio taiso sessions are daily highlights, restoring not only mobility but dignity. One elderly participant once told a researcher, "When I move my arms in rhythm with everyone else, I feel my body is still young. My heart dances with theirs." This emotional dimension, movement as joy, not duty, may be the hidden secret behind its lasting power. For beginners outside Japan, rajio taiso is easy to try. The routine is available on countless online videos, often accompanied by the original piano music that millions still recognize. Stand with feet shoulder-width apart, follow the guided movements, and let your body flow. The key is not precision, but participation, allowing yourself to stretch, breathe, and move with ease. Westerners often underestimate gentle movement, assuming only sweat and strain bring results. Yet the Japanese approach teaches otherwise. Consistency beats intensity. 3 minutes a day, every day, can accumulate into thousands of hours across a lifetime. Over decades, these tiny investments compound, keeping joints fluid, muscles engaged, and spirits lifted. Rajio taiso is more than exercise, it is a cultural heartbeat. A daily reminder that health is not achieved in isolation, but in rhythm with others. In the quiet of dawn, under the rising sun, millions of Japanese bodies stretch upward as one. And in that upward reach lies a truth. To age well, we must move not harder, not faster, but together. Longevity is rarely the result of a single habit. It is born from patterns, rituals, and rhythms that reinforce one another. In Japan, sampo and rajio taiso are not random exercises. They are two pillars of a larger structure in architecture of health built across generations. To understand why the Japanese live longer, we must look not just at the parts, but at the system they create together. Imagine a Japanese elder's morning. The day often begins before sunrise. After a light wash of the face and a cup of warm tea, the first ritual unfolds: sampo, a slow walk through the neighborhood. This practice awakens the body gently, aligning breath with movement, reconnecting the feet to the earth, and centering the mind. It is solitary, yet connected, an inward meditation, performed in the outward world. By the time the elder returns home, circulation is flowing, the nervous system is calm, and the senses are sharpened. Then, often within the hour, comes rajio taiso. From solitary slowness, the elder shifts to communal rhythm. Standing in a group, whether in a park, a courtyard, or even in front of the television, they stretch, bend, twist, and breathe with others. The movements are light, almost playful, yet every joint is touched, every muscle engaged. Where sampo grounds the body in balance, taiso extends it into flexibility, mobility, and joy. The brilliance lies in the sequence. Sampo prepares, taiso expands. Slow walking primes the nervous system, loosens the joints, and awakens awareness. Stretching and light calisthenics then mobilize the body more deeply, strengthening muscles and stimulating organs. Together, they form a continuum. First inward calm, then outward expression. One balances solitude, the other reinforces community. Science confirms that this layering effect multiplies benefits. Studies from Kyoto and Nagoya universities reveal that seniors who practice both rituals have significantly lower rates of frailty than those who do only one. They walk faster, climb stairs more easily, and maintain independence longer. The pairing of balance and flexibility creates resiliency, body less prone to falls, injuries, or decline. But the deeper truth lies beyond biology. These rituals embody a philosophy of daily renewal. Instead of seeking health in extreme effort or occasional bursts, Japanese elders invest in small, consistent acts. 3 minutes here, 15 minutes there, simple enough to sustain for decades. Longevity, then, is not a grand achievement, but the quiet accumulation of thousands of mornings lived with care. There's also a cultural symmetry at play. Sampo connects the individual to nature, while rajio taiso connects the individual to community. One says, "I belong to the earth," the other says, "I belong to others." Together, they answer two of humanity's deepest needs, grounding and belonging. And in those needs fulfilled, stress dissolves, loneliness diminishes, and life stretches longer. Consider the contrast. In many Western cities, elders wake late, sit with coffee, perhaps turn on the television, and remain indoors. Movement is sporadic, often prescribed only after health has already declined. In Japan, the rituals come first. Movement is not therapy, but a way of life, as essential as eating or sleeping. This cultural expectation forms an invisible safety net, each person buoyed, not only by personal discipline, but by collective rhythm. For outsiders, the lesson is clear. The path to longevity is not about intensity, but about systems. Choose 2 or 3 rituals that are simple, accessible, and repeatable. Practice them daily, not as obligations, but as companions. Over years, they will knit themselves into your identity, just as sampo and rajio taiso have for millions of Japanese elders. Longevity, then, is not mysterious. It is not locked away in genetics or reserved for the few. It is built in small, steady acts that align body, mind, and community. Japan shows us that when rituals interlock, life not only lengthens, it deepens. And this is only the beginning. Because while movement is the foundation of Japanese longevity, the next pillar lies at the table in a practice as subtle and powerful as their walks and stretches. Hara-hachi butha, art of eating until you are only 80% full. In the blue waters of Okinawa, where some of the world's longest-lived people reside, longevity is not only measured in years but in meals. Here, elders in their 90s and even 100s often rise each morning with strong backs, sharp minds, and gentle laughter. When asked about their secret, many will smile and repeat a simple phrase. Hara-hachi bu. Translated, it means, eat until you are 80% full. At first, it sounds like little more than an eating tip. But beneath this modest guideline lies a profound philosophy that has quietly added decades of life to Okinawans. Unlike fad diets that rise and fade, Hara-hachi bu is not a trend. It is a cultural inheritance, passed down through generations, etched into the fabric of everyday life. So what does it mean to stop at 80%? Imagine sitting at a family meal. In many cultures, the goal is fullness, to leave the table with the satisfying heaviness of having eaten enough. In Okinawa, the goal is different. You eat slowly, savoring each bite. When you feel comfortably satisfied but not stuffed, you set your chopsticks down. That pause is hara-hachi bu. It is a line drawn not by the body's hunger but by discipline, wisdom, and respect for health. Science now reveals why this small act is so powerful. When you stop eating at 80% fullness, you reduce total calorie intake by 15 to 20%. Over decades, this calorie moderation lowers the risk of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease, all leading killers in the West. It also activates a biological mechanism called caloric restriction, shown in countless studies to extend lifespan in animals and improve metabolic health in humans. But hara-hachi bu is not about restriction in the painful sense. It's not deprivation, nor is it hunger. It is mindfulness, staying tuned to the body, resisting the cultural push to overeat, and embracing sufficiency instead of excess. In practice, this creates a subtle but lasting calorie deficit without the struggle of dieting. A landmark study compared Okinawans practicing hara-hachi bu with mainland Japanese and Americans. The Okinawans consumed an average of 1,800 to 1,900 calories per day, compared to 2,300 to 2,500 for others. Yet they had lower rates of chronic illness and lived years longer. Their meals, though smaller, were nutrient-rich: bowls of vegetables, seaweed, tofu, small portions of fish, and sweet potatoes instead of rice. Less quantity, more quality. There's also a hormonal explanation. Eating until 80% full gives the body time to recognize satiety, signals leptin and peptide hormones that take about 20 minutes to reach the brain. By stopping early, Okinawans avoid the common trap of overshooting hunger, which leads to weight gain and metabolic strain. In simple terms, hara-hachi bu keeps the body in balance. But this practice is not only about biology, it reflects Okinawan philosophy. Life is best lived in moderation. Elders say, the stomach is the origin of disaster. Overeating is seen not just as unhealthy, but as undignified, a failure of respect for the body. Stopping at 80% is an act of gratitude, leaving space not only in the stomach but in the spirit. Meals themselves are rituals of mindfulness. Okinawans eat from small plates, often with bowls no larger than a cupped hand. This naturally encourages slower eating and smaller portions. Food is often shared family style, so no one piles their plate high. And meals are accompanied by gratitude phrases, itadakimasu, before eating, gochisu-sama, after bookending the act with awareness and humility. The benefits ripple outward. Elders who follow harahachi-bu maintain healthier weights without effort. Their blood sugar remains steady, their arteries clear, their joints less burdened. Even in their 90s, many remain slim, agile, and energetic. Researchers call this metabolic youth, the preservation of a younger body through wiser eating. But perhaps the deepest power of harahachi-bu lies in what it teaches, that longevity is not only about what we add supplements, treatments, interventions, but about what we withhold. The restraint to stop before excess is an art, one that cultivates discipline, gratitude, and health all at once. For those outside Japan, practicing harahachi-bu is possible. Start by serving yourself 20% less than usual. Use smaller plates. Chew slowly, setting utensils down between bites. Pause mid-meal and ask, "Am I satisfied?" not, "Am I full?" Over time, this shift becomes natural, and the body begins to thrive on less, not more. In the West, we often equate abundance with health: bigger portions, fuller plates, more choices. Okinawa flips the script. Health is found not in abundance, but in sufficiency. And in that sufficiency lies freedom, freedom from disease, from heaviness, from the burdens of excess. Harahachi-bu is not just eating less. It is eating wisely, gratefully, and with restraint. It is a philosophy of living lightly, leaving room, not just in the stomach, but in the heart. And it may be one of the most powerful lessons Japan offers the world, that longevity begins not when we add more to our lives, but when we learn the grace of stopping at enough. If harahachi-bu were only about eating less, it might have vanished long ago, swept away by the global tide of fast food and oversized portions. But its endurance in Okinawa comes from something deeper, a psychology of restraint woven into culture, spirituality, and daily life. In the Western world, restraint often feels like denial, a grim discipline of saying no. In Okinawa, restraint feels different. It is harmony, balance, even joy. The people here are not haunted by the idea of missing out. Instead, they are lifted by the idea of living in balance with their bodies and with nature. This begins with the concept of ma, a Japanese aesthetic that values the space between things, the pause between notes in music, the silence between words, the gap between hunger and fullness. Ma teaches that emptiness is not absence but possibility. Harahachi-bu reflects this. Leaving a little space in the stomach honors the idea that not everything must be filled. In that space, life flows more freely. It is also connected to Confucian philosophy, which has influenced Okinawan customs for centuries. Moderation is seen as a virtue, a way of honoring self-control and wisdom. Overeating is not just a personal mistake, but a disturbance of balance, both within the body and in society. To eat until bursting would be considered impolite, even careless. Meals themselves are structured to reinforce this psychology. Small plates and bowls, known as ichijusansai, one soup, three sides, offer variety in modest portions. Bright vegetables, tofu, fish, and sweet potatoes appear in balance, not in excess. Instead of one oversized, the table is a harmony of small offerings, inviting you to savor slowly rather than devour quickly. Even the act of saying, "itadakimasu," before a meal, often translated as "I humbly receive," carries weight. It is not simply, let's eat, but a moment of gratitude, acknowledging farmers, animals, the earth, and the effort that brought the food to the table. Gratitude naturally slows consumption. It turns eating into ceremony, making it harder to overindulge. In contrast, modern Western eating often carries the psychology of scarcity and urgency. Eat fast before it gets cold. Finish your plate, get the biggest size for the best value. In this mindset, fullness is not enough, excess becomes the marker of satisfaction. Okinawa flips this script. The moment of satisfaction comes before excess, in the gentle stopping point of hara hachi-bu. Psychologists call this cognitive reframing, a shift in how we perceive enough. For Okinawans, stopping early is not a loss, but a gain. It is proof of discipline, a sign of self-respect, a way of honoring future health over fleeting indulgence. Children are taught this early, not as a diet but as manners. By adulthood, it feels natural. Science supports this psychological framing. When people believe they are practicing a tradition, not just a restriction, they are far more likely to sustain the behavior. Hara hachi-bu survives not because Okinawans measure calories or follow rules, but because it feels like part of identity. To eat until 80% full is to be Okinawan. The psychological benefits ripple outward. By stopping at 80%, Okinawans avoid the fatigue and sluggishness of overeating. They rise from meals light, energized, and ready to move. This creates a feedback loop. Lighter meals encourage more movement, which reinforces health, which supports longevity. There is also a social layer. Meals are often shared, and hara hachi-bu becomes a silent agreement. No one eats until stuffed, while others continue politely nibbling. Eating lightly together creates a communal rhythm of balance. It's less about the individual body, and more about the harmony of the group. Perhaps the most profound psychological aspect is how hara hachi-bu shapes one's relationship with desire. Instead of chasing constant satisfaction, Okinawans learn to find peace in almost full. That almost becomes a metaphor for life itself. We don't need everything, all at once, to be content. We need enough. This small shift may explain why Okinawans report some of the highest levels of life satisfaction even in old age. So, when researchers marvel at Okinawans' long lives, they often look to nutrients, genetics, or daily habits. But beneath it all is a quiet cultural psychology. The ability to stop before excess, to live with gratitude, and to find harmony in restraint. Hara hachi-bu is not just a way of eating. It is a way of being, a mindset that transforms every meal into a lesson in balance, humility, and joy. At 6:30 each morning, across Japan, a faint piano melody drifts from radios and loudspeakers. In parks, schools, offices, and even factory yards, people of all ages pause, stand, and begin to move in unison. Arms rise, torsos bend, knees flex. The sequence is simple, flowing, almost childlike. Yet, for nearly a century, this ritual radio taiso, or radio calisthenics, has been quietly shaping one of the healthiest aging populations in the world. The origins of radio taiso trace back to 1928, when Japan introduced it as a public health program. Inspired by American life insurance exercises, it was simplified, shortened, and adapted for Japanese society. Within years, it became part of daily life. Today, millions still practice it, from school children to centenarians. For many, it's the first act of the day, a gentle awakening of body and spirit. At first glance, radio taiso seems too simple to matter. The whole routine lasts barely 3 minutes. 13 movements, arm swings, stretches, twists, squats, light jumps. No equipment, no strain. But hidden in this simplicity is brilliance. Each motion engages multiple joints while maintaining a steady rhythm. There are no static holds, just continuous flow, lubricating the body's hinges and stimulating circulation. Science confirms its power. Studies from Osaka Medical College tracked thousands of older adults who practiced rajio taiso daily. The results were astonishing. Fewer falls, less chronic back pain, stronger mobility, and greater independence. Even into their 80s and 90s, participants maintained range of motion in shoulders, hips, and spine that Westerners often lose decades earlier. The secret lies in the body's synovial fluid, the oil of the joints. Without regular movement, this fluid thickens, making joints stiff and painful. Rajio taiso increases production by as much as 30%, keeping joints supple. At the same time, the rhythmic movements raise heart rate gently, enough to boost circulation without strain. It is exercise without exhaustion, medicine without pills. But rajio taiso is more than biomechanics, it is ritualized community health. Each morning, elders gather in parks, moving together under the sun. Some lean on canes, others move with youthful precision, but all share the rhythm. The sight is both ordinary and extraordinary. A society choosing to age not in isolation, but in collective motion. This communal aspect matters. Research shows that people are far more likely to sustain healthy habits when done in groups. For Japanese elders, rajio taiso is not a solitary workout but a social anchor. Friendships form, conversations spark, and loneliness, a silent killer, in old age is quietly pushed away. There is also a psychological rhythm. Starting the day with rajio taiso sends a signal. The body is awake, aligned, and ready. Elders often describe it as a reset, a way to shake off stiffness and enter the day with clarity. Unlike gyms or fitness classes, there is no barrier, no cost, no clothing requirements, no special place, just the body, the melody, and the shared tradition. Western exercise culture often emphasizes intensity, faster, harder, heavier. But rajio taiso suggests something else, that longevity comes not from occasional extremes, but from gentle constancy. 3 minutes, every day, for decades. The power lies not in how hard you move, but in how unfailingly you return to the movement. And then there is nostalgia. Many Japanese adults practiced rajio taiso as children in schoolyards. Continuing the same routine in old age creates a thread of continuity across a lifetime. Movements, once done playfully as a child, become medicine in elderhood, linking past and present in the body's memory. For those outside Japan, rajio taiso offers a lesson. Longevity is not always hidden in complex programs or cutting-edge gyms. Sometimes, it lies in the simplest rituals, repeated faithfully. You don't need more than a few minutes, a clear space, and the willingness to move. Imagine beginning each morning, not with a screen, not with caffeine, but with 3 minutes of graceful, communal motion. Over decades, those minutes accumulate into strength, balance, and resilience that no pill can provide. In Japan, rajio taiso is more than exercise. It is a living symbol of the nation's approach to health, modest, communal, sustainable, a reminder that movement, like breath, is most powerful when woven seamlessly into daily life. In many parts of the modern world, squatting has nearly disappeared from daily life. Chairs dominate homes, offices, schools, and public spaces. Children may squat while playing, but adults rarely do. Yet in Japan and especially in Okinawa, the squat has never fully vanished. And this simple act, humble and ancient, may hold keys to mobility, strength, and longevity. For centuries, Japanese people lived close to the ground. Meals were eaten seated on tatami mats. Work like gardening or cooking often involved crouching. Toilets were designed for the squat position. Even moments of rest or conversation happened in low postures, with the body folded close to the earth. This daily engagement with squatting built resilience in the hips, knees, and ankles, maintaining flexibility that Western bodies often lose by middle age. In Okinawa, elders well into their 80s and 90s are still seen rising fluidly from the ground, tending to their gardens, or sitting on low stools. They do this not as exercise but as life. Every squat is a repetition, every sit-to-stand a strength training session. Without realizing it, they accumulate hundreds of micro-workouts per day, movements that preserve muscle, balance, and coordination. Science backs this up. Squatting deeply engages major muscle groups: quadriceps, glutes, hamstrings, calves, and core. It also strengthens stabilizing muscles around the knees and ankles. Unlike walking or even jogging, it requires dynamic flexibility. Over time, regular squatting reduces the risk of falls, maintains independence, and preserves mobility far into old age. One striking study in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology introduced the sit-to-rise test, a measure of how easily someone can sit on the floor and rise without using hands or support. The findings were clear. Those who could rise smoothly had a significantly lower risk of mortality. The body's ability to move from ground to standing is not just a marker of strength, it is a predictor of longevity. In Okinawa, this is simply life. There is no separate leg day. Instead, movement is woven into routine: kneeling to pick vegetables, squatting to share tea, bending low to play with grandchildren. The floor itself becomes a gym, the garden a training ground. There is also a cultural dimension. In Japanese tradition, humility and respect are often expressed physically through bowing or lowering oneself. Squatting, kneeling, sitting on tatami mats, these are not just postures, but gestures of groundedness. The body learns not only strength, but also a quiet, embodied respect for space and tradition. Contrast this with chair-dominated cultures. Prolonged sitting in high seats shortens hip flexors, weakens glutes, and stiffens joints. By middle age, many Western adults find deep squatting painful, even impossible. What was once a natural human posture has become exotic, relegated to gyms as a specialized mobility drill. Yet the squat is our birthright. Infants squat effortlessly, playing for long stretches in the deep position. The ability only fades when we stop using it. Okinawans never stopped. They maintained the posture into adulthood, and with it, the gift of longevity through mobility. The squat also nurtures balance, an often overlooked factor in healthy aging. Falls are a leading cause of injury and loss of independence in elders worldwide. The daily practice of squatting strengthens proprioception, the body's sense of where it is in space. Rising from the ground becomes not a challenge but a familiar movement, rehearsed thousands of times across a lifetime. Psychologically, squatting carries something else: a return to simplicity. It places the body low, close to the earth, in a posture of rest yet readiness. To squat is to embody patience, to feel rooted and light at once. Perhaps this is why Okinawan elders often describe themselves as feeling young in the body. Despite their years, they never lost touch with the movements of youth. For those outside Japan, reclaiming the squat may feel difficult at first. Stiffness, pain, or weakness may resist. But the body is remarkably adaptable. With practice starting shallow, holding onto support, lowering gradually, the deep squat can return. Each day, a little closer to the floor, a little smoother rising up. Like the Okinawans, it becomes not a workout, but a way of living. Longevity is not built only in labs or clinics. Sometimes, it is preserved in simple human postures, sitting close to the earth, rising under one's own power, repeating this dance daily until it becomes invisible. For Okinawans, the squat is not an exercise trend. It is a living heritage of movement, passed quietly from one generation to the next. And in that humble act of lowering and rising, a truth is revealed. The body stays young when it continues to do what it was made to do. In Okinawa, when researchers ask elders why they think they live so long, the answers rarely begin with food or exercise. Instead, they smile softly and speak of ikigai, a word that translates roughly as reason for being or reason to wake up in the morning. Ikigai is not about grand achievements. It is not a destiny written in stone. It is something quieter, more personal, more intimate. For one person, it might be tending a small garden. For another, caring for grandchildren. For others still, it may be practicing calligraphy, teaching, or simply sharing morning tea with neighbors. The essence of ikigai is purpose, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that sustains. It is the invisible thread that gives shape to days and meaning to years. And in Okinawa, it is everywhere. Take, for example, a 102-year-old woman named Yushi, often cited in longevity studies. When asked why she still rises early each morning, she answers without hesitation, "My sweet potato field is waiting for me." Another elder, age 97, says his ikigai is teaching traditional Okinawan music to children. These purposes may seem small, but they are everything. They give reason to move, to connect, to live another day. Science supports this deeply human truth. A landmark Japanese study that followed over 43,000 adults found that those with a strong sense of ikigai had significantly lower risks of cardiovascular disease, stroke, and even early death. The link was not merely psychological, though purpose does reduce depression and anxiety, but physiological. Purpose lowers stress hormones, regulates blood pressure, and strengthens immunity. In short, purpose heals. Western psychology has begun to echo this with concepts like meaning in life or positive aging. But in Okinawa, ikigai is not a theory. It is lived, taught, and cherished. Children grow up watching their grandparents embody it daily. Elders never retire into emptiness. They retire into ikigai. A fisherman may stop going to sea, but he finds joy in mending nets, telling stories, or teaching skills to the young. Purpose adapts with age, it does not vanish. This is critical. In many cultures, retirement is framed as an endinga, withdrawal from usefulness. But in Okinawa, elders remain pillars of society. Their knowledge, humor, and presence are valued. Their ikigai continues to ripple outward, nourishing not only themselves but also their families and communities. Ikigai is also social. It thrives in the context of relationships. Okinawans rarely describe their reason for living as something solitary. Instead, it is tied to family, friends, neighbors, or the natural world. A grandmother's ikigai may be cooking soup for her grandchildren. A grandfather's ikigai may be gathering friends each evening to play traditional music. Even small roles are infused with dignity. There is wisdom here, that longevity is not sustained by the pursuit of pleasure alone but by devotion to something beyond oneself. When we live for others, or for something larger, we naturally endure longer. Ikigai also softens the struggles of old age. Pain, loss, and illness inevitably come. But when elders have a reason to rise, whether it is a plant to water, a child to greet, or a ritual to perform, the hardships become bearable. Life continues to feel worth living. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of ikigai is its ordinariness. It does not demand brilliance or wealth. You do not need to change the world. Your ikigai can be as simple as caring for a bonsai tree, walking to the sea each morning, or keeping alive a family tradition. It is not about greatness. It is about meaning. When Westerners visit Okinawa, searching for the secret to long life, they often look for exotic diets or rare herbs. But the elders gently remind them. The secret is purpose. To wake each morning knowing why you are alive, that is medicine stronger than any pill. And so, Okinawa teaches us that true longevity is not only a matter of body, but of spirit. Muscles may weaken, eyesight may fade, but as long as ikigai burns quietly within, life remains vibrant. If ikigai gives Okinawans a reason to wake up in the morning, then Moi gives them the people to wake up for. Moi is a word that means meeting for a common purpose, but in Okinawa, it is far more than a casual gathering. It is a lifelong circle of friends who commit to supporting each other not only socially, but financially, emotionally, and spiritually through every stage of life. The roots of Moi go back hundreds of years, to times when Okinawan villagers faced economic hardship. Neighbors would form groups, pooling resources so that no one would ever fall into ruin alone. If a harvest failed, or illness struck, the Moi stepped in. Over time, the concept evolved beyond financial security into something even more vital: emotional resilience. Today, Moi are formed early in life, sometimes in childhood, sometimes through school or community ties. Once formed, they endure for decades, often for life. Members meet regularly, sharing meals, laughter, worries, and joys. They celebrate weddings and births, grieve losses together, and mark the quiet, ordinary moments of aging side by side. Imagine a group of 5 childhood friends in Okinawa. They grow up together, each taking different paths. One becomes a fisherman, another a shopkeeper, another a farmer. But their Moi continues. In their 30s, they meet weekly, swapping advice and helping each other raise families. In their 60s, they share tea, playing traditional music, their children now grown. By their 90s, they are still together, still laughing, still holding one another through life's final seasons. This is Moi. And it is one of the most profound yet overlooked secrets of Okinawan longevity. Science offers strong confirmation. Social isolation is one of the greatest predictors of early mortality, on par with smoking or obesity. Loneliness triggers stress hormones, weakens immunity, and erodes both mental and physical health. By contrast, strong social ties buffer stress, lower inflammation, and even lengthen telomeres, the tiny caps on our DNA linked to aging. In Okinawa, loneliness is rare among elders. When researchers visit villages, they find 90-year-olds who are not just alive, but socially active, supported by friends who have known them for decades. Their Moi ensures that no one eats alone, suffers alone, or celebrates alone. Life's burdens are divided, life's joys multiplied. The Moi also provides practical security. Members often contribute to a shared financial fund, used in times of illness or hardship. But more than money, it provides peace of mind. Knowing that one is never abandoned reduces anxiety, creating a sense of safety that nourishes health as surely as food or medicine. There is a cultural humility in this system. In the West, Friendships are often seen as voluntary, sometimes fleeting. In Okinawa, moe is more like kinship, a chosen family bound by trust and commitment. It is not about convenience, but about endurance. The expectation is simple but profound. We walk through life together. Perhaps this is why Okinawan elders carry such joy in their voices, even in advanced age. They are not walking the final path alone. They are accompanied by laughter, by shared meals, by the knowledge that even as bodies weaken, bonds hold strong. There is also an intergenerational ripple. Children grow up watching their parents and grandparents meet with their moe, and so the tradition continues. Friendships are not left to chance. They are cultivated, honored, and maintained with intention. In the modern world, where loneliness has become an epidemic, moe offers a radical lesson. Longevity is not just about personal choices, it is about collective care. No one thrives alone. We need circles of belonging, people who remind us of who we are and carry us when we stumble. So, when Okinawans speak of living long, they rarely mention vitamins or gym routines. They speak of friends, of tea shared at dusk, of laughter that has echoed across decades, of the quiet strength of knowing that, whatever happens, your moe will be there. And in that, there is a truth as powerful as any diet or exercise. To live long is to live connected. In Okinawa, health is not just physical. It is spiritual, communal, and deeply tied to ritual. To understand why so many Okinawans live past 100, we must look not only at what they eat or how they move, but also at what they believe on, how those beliefs shape daily life. Spirituality in Okinawa is unique, blending influences from Buddhism, Shintoism, Taoism, and indigenous Ryukyuan traditions. At its heart is a deep reverence for ancestors and for the natural world. Elders describe feeling part of a long, unbroken chain that connects the living with those who came before. This sense of continuity creates resilience. Life is not just about the individual, but about honoring a greater flow. One of the most visible expressions of this is the ancestor altar, or butsuden, found in many Okinawan homes. Families offer incense, food, and prayers to deceased relatives, asking for protection and guidance. This daily act of remembrance roots people in gratitude and humility. For elders, it reinforces a sense of belonging, even when loneliness or loss might otherwise creep in. Rituals also punctuate the year. Festivals like Obon, the celebration of ancestors' spirits, bring entire communities together in dance, song, and prayer. Elders participate actively, not as passive observers but as carriers of tradition. The communal rhythm of ritual strengthens bonds and creates joy, reducing stress and nurturing emotional health. There is also a spiritual intimacy with nature. Okinawans often speak of the sea, the sun, and the soil as companions in life. Gardens are tended not just for food, but as sacred spaces of healing. Walking barefoot on the earth, listening to the ocean's rhythm, or simply sitting under the shade of a banyan tree, these are spiritual practices as much as they are physical ones. At the village level, Noro priestesses, women, spiritual leaders, once guided community rituals, offering prayers for health, fertility, and protection. While their formal role has lessened over time, echoes remain in the way Okinawan women often take the lead in maintaining spiritual traditions within families. These rituals provide not just comfort but a sense of meaning, helping people endure hardship with grace. Science has begun to catch up to what Okinawans have known intuitively. Spirituality protects health. Studies show that regular ritual practice lowers cortisol levels, reduces inflammation, and strengthens the immune system. Prayer and meditation improve emotional resilience, helping elders cope with grief, pain, and uncertainty. Believing in something greater, whether ancestors, nature, or community, provides hope, and hope itself is medicine. Ritual also creates structure. In old age, when work routines may vanish, rituals give rhythm to life. Lighting incense each morning, joining neighbors for temple ceremonies, or preparing traditional foods for festivals ensures that each day still carries purpose. Without ritual, time can feel empty. With it, even the simplest acts are imbued with meaning. What is striking in Okinawa is the gentleness of spirituality. It is not dogmatic or rigid. It is woven into daily life, soft, constant, like a background melody. People do not speak of religion as obligation, but as nourishment. It is there in greetings, in gratitude before meals, in the way they honor both the seen and unseen. For elders, this spirituality provides peace. Death is not feared as an end, but embraced as part of the natural cycle. Ancestors are not gone. They are present, guiding, watching, protecting. This acceptance reduces existential anxiety, allowing Okinawans to age with grace, not dread. Perhaps this is the greatest gift of Okinawan spirituality. It turns aging from a decline into a sacred stage of life. Elders are not discarded, but revered, their wisdom treasured, their rituals central to community life. In this embrace of spirit, body, and community, longevity is not only possible, it becomes almost inevitable. In much of the modern world, aging is seen as something to fight against, a battle waged with creams, surgeries, and denial. But in Okinawa, and across Japan, there is a quieter, gentler philosophy that reshapes how people experience growing old. It is called wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi is more than an idea, is a way of seeing. At its core, it is the appreciation of imperfection, impermanence, and incompleteness. A cracked teacup, carefully mended with gold lacquer in the art of kintsugi, is seen not as broken, but as beautiful, because of its history. The scars are not hidden, they are honored. This philosophy extends into how Okinawans view life, and, especially, aging. Wrinkles are not shameful. They are the visible poetry of time. A body that has weathered storms, raised families, worked the land, and danced at festivals is cherished for its strength, not criticized for its decline. Where Western culture often worships youth, Okinawan culture reveres the beauty of life's later stages. Elders live in environments that reflect this. Their homes are simple, filled with natural light, tatami mats, and wooden beams that may creak with age but feel alive. Nothing is overly polished. Nothing pretends to last forever. Instead, there is comfort in transience. Seasons change, and so do people. This acceptance reduces the anxiety of trying to cling to what cannot be held. There is also a profound humility in wabi-sabi living. Elders often wear simple clothing, eat modest meals, and tend to gardens that look slightly wild rather than perfectly manicured. In this way of life, beauty emerges not from perfection, but from authenticity. The uneven, the aged, the weathered, these are reminders that all things carry stories, and stories are more precious than flawless surfaces. Psychologists suggest that this mindset protects Okinawans from the despair that often shadows old age in other societies. When you accept impermanence, loss does not feel like failure, feels like the natural rhythm of existence. When you see beauty in imperfection, your own changing body becomes less a source of shame and more a testament to endurance. Wabi-sabi also influences how Okinawans interact with one another. They do not demand perfection in relationships. Friendships, like pottery, may crack and be mended. Marriages carry flaws, but these flaws are seen as part of their strength. Communities are not spotless, they are messy, human, and alive. And in that humanity, there is beauty. Even in funerary practices, this philosophy shines through. Rather than avoiding death, Okinawans face it with reverence, acknowledging its inevitability while celebrating the life lived. Graves are not just markers of endings, but symbols of continuation, tied into the cycles of ancestors and descendants. The acceptance of mortality gives more vibrancy to daily life, because nothing is taken for granted. Modern researchers might call this resilience, but Okinawans would simply call it living with wabi-sabi. It allows them to carry joy and gratitude into old age without being crushed by the unrealistic pressures of eternal youth. In a world obsessed with anti-aging, Okinawans remind us of a different truth. Beauty is not in resisting time, but in flowing with it. Imagine the peace of waking each morning, not with dread of another wrinkle, but with curiosity. What story will today add to my body, to my home, to my soul? This is the quiet power of wabi-sabi. It turns age into art. When people look at Okinawa today, with its peaceful villages and elders smiling in the sun, it is easy to imagine that their long lives have always been sheltered. But the truth is far harsher and far more inspiring. The secret to their resilience lies not only in gentle habits and philosophies, but also in how they endured some of the darkest chapters of modern history. The Okinawan people carry deep scars from the Battle of Okinawa in 1945. One of the bloodiest conflicts of the Second World War, their island became the front line. In just 3 months, more than a quarter of the civilian population perished, mothers, children, grandparents, entire families wiped out. Villages were flattened, farmland destroyed, and hunger swept through the survivors. To live through this was to be marked forever by loss. Yet those who endured did not collapse into despair. They rebuilt. They turned again to community, to gardens, to rituals, and to each other. Out of tragedy grew a fierce determination to value life itself. For decades after the war, Okinawa remained one of the poorest prefectures in Japan. Jobs were scarce, many families survived on subsistence farming, and U.S. military bases dominated the land. Yet this scarcity created something unexpected. It reinforced frugality, gratitude, and resourcefulness. Meals were built from what the earth could provide: sweet potatoes, bitter melon, wild herbs. Children grew up learning that waste was unthinkable, and that even hardship could be met with dignity. This resilience became woven into their cultural DNA. An elder who remembers both hunger and war carries a deep appreciation for every grain of rice. A grandmother who lived through bombings values peace, not as an abstract concept, but as a daily blessing. These lived experiences taught Okinawans to see survival itself as victory. Psychologists now recognize what Okinawans practiced intuitively: post-traumatic growth. Where trauma can break some, it can also, under certain conditions, deepen wisdom, compassion, and perspective. Elders who lived through hardship learned that suffering does not last forever, that communities can rebuild, that joy can return. This knowledge makes them calm in the face of new challenges, whether personal illness or global crises. The oral traditions of Okinawa preserve these memories. Stories of survival are passed down not as tales of bitterness, but as lessons in strength. Younger generations hear how their grandparents dug caves to hide during air raids or survived on meager harvest sand. In hearing, they inherit a quiet pride. The past becomes a guide, not a weight. Adversity also reinforced the Okinawan habit of moe, those tight-knit social groups formed for mutual support. In times of poverty, pooling resources was not optionally, was survival. These bonds, forged in necessity, endured into times of prosperity, ensuring that no one would be left behind. The result: lower loneliness, stronger safety nets, and communities that truly function like extended families. Even today, the presence of U.S. bases and the memories of war remain complex realities for Okinawans. Yet their response has never been only resistance. It has been resilience, the ability to find meaning, adapt, and carry forward traditions, even under outside pressure. That ability to bend without breaking is perhaps one of the deepest reasons they live so long. To understand Okinawan longevity without acknowledging their history of suffering is to miss the heart of the story. Their long lives are not just the result of diet, movement, or genetics. They are the fruit of a people who have stared into the abyss of loss and chosen, again and again, to embrace life fully. Their laughter carries echoes of sorrow, but it is precisely because of that sorrow that their joy feels so genuine. Longevity in Okinawa is not fragile. It is forged. Okinawa today is at a crossroads. On one hand, it remains a global symbol of health, resilience, and longevity. On the other, it faces a tide of modern pressures that threaten to unravel the very traditions that made it famous. To walk the streets of Naha, or the quiet villages of Ogami, is to see this tension alive and visible. The elders still gather in shaded gardens, laughing as they share tea and stories. They still tend their small plots of vegetables, sing old songs, and bow before family altars. For them, the way of life forged through hardship remains steady, like an anchor. Yet, the younger generations are pulled into a different world: fast food chains, long work hours, westernized habits, and the dominance of digital life. McDonald's and convenience stores sit alongside traditional markets. Cars replace bicycles and walking. Smartphones replace evenings of communal storytelling. These shifts are not trivial. They are reflected in health statistics. While Okinawan elders still hold some of the highest life expectancies in the world, younger Okinawans are seeing shorter lifespans, higher obesity rates, and an alarming rise in lifestyle diseases like diabetes. The very island once celebrated as a blueprint for healthy living now finds itself struggling to preserve the balance. Yet, amid this challenge, something powerful is happening. Many communities and individuals are actively working to revive, protect, and adapt their traditions. Farmers are returning to heritage crops like purple sweet potatoes and bitter melon. Local chefs are reimagining Okinawan cuisine with a modern twist, while preserving its plant-based heart. Schools are teaching children about ikigai, gratitude, and respect for elders. Festivals continue to bring together generations in song, dance, and shared meals, ensuring the rhythm of life does not vanish under the noise of modernity. There is also a growing awareness among Okinawans themselves that their heritage is precious, not only to them but to the world. Wellness tourism has increased, with visitors from around the globe arriving to learn from centenarians, eat traditional meals, and even join morning exercises in village parks. This exchange strengthens pride among the younger Okinawans, reminding them that what might seem old-fashioned is in fact a treasure others admire. But the struggle remains real. Globalization does not pause for tradition. Economic challenges, urbanization, and the demands of modern work culture threaten to isolate people from the very community bonds that sustain long life. The question for Okinawa today is not whether it can hold on to its traditions, but whether it can transform them to fit modern life without losing their essence. And perhaps this is where the true spirit of Okinawa will once again shine. After all, this is a people who survived war, poverty, and scarcity by adapting, by bending without breaking. Today's challenges are different, but the lesson is the same. Resilience is not about rejecting change, it is about carrying your values through it. The younger generation may not live exactly as their great-grandparents did, but they can carry forward the core principles. Eat close to nature, move daily, cherish community, nurture purpose, and live with gratitude. If these values are protected, Okinawa will not lose its secret, it will evolve it. The world is watching. For Okinawa is no longer just a remote island, it is a mirror. Its ability to balance tradition with modern challenges reflects the very struggle every society faces today: how to live long, well, and meaningfully in an age of speed, consumption, and disconnection. And in that struggle, Okinawa offers not despair but hope. The story of Okinawa is not just about a place, it is about possibility. The longevity of its people is not an accident of geography, but a set of principles, choices, and habits that any of us, wherever we live, can weave into our own lives. The island is a living laboratory that teaches us what it means to age not only long, but well. So what, exactly, can the world learn? First, the power of community. In a time when loneliness has been called an epidemic, Okinawa shows us that connection is medicine. Their small, lifelong support groups offer not just companionship, but resilience against life's storms. For us, it may not look the same, but the principle is clear. To live longer, we must live together. We must build circles of trust, whether through friendships, family ties, or community groups, where we know we belong. Second, purpose as a lifeline. The Okinawan concept of ikigai reminds us that health is not only physical, it is existential. Without a reason to wake up in the morning, no diet or exercise routine can sustain us for long. We can learn from their insistence that purpose does not retire with age. Whether it is tending a garden, mentoring the young, creating art, or nurturing faith, having a why gives energy to the body and peace to the soul. Third, living close to nature. The Okinawan diet is humble but powerful. Vegetables, legumes, herbs, and a balance of small portions. It is not about restriction or fad diets, but about harmony with what the land provides. Their gardens, their daily walks, their relationship with sunlight and fresh air all remind us that modern health cannot be found only in supplements or gym memberships. It begins with reconnecting to earth, movement, and simple nourishment. Fourth, the art of moderation. Okinawans practice hara-hachi-bu eating until they are 80% full. This restraint, born of necessity, now serves as a shield against overconsumption. In a world where abundance often leads to illness, their wisdom whispers, less can be more. Fifth, resilience in the face of suffering. The elders of Okinawa did not escape hardship. They endured war, loss, and poverty. What makes them remarkable is not the absence of pain, but the presence of grace through it. They teach us that adversity need not harden us into bitterness. Instead, it can deepen empathy, gratitude, and the ability to cherish each day as a gift. Taken together, these lessons point to a simple but profound truth. Longevity is not just about adding years to life, but about adding life to years. A century of existence means little if it is marked by isolation, despair, or illness. But a century filled with laughter, meaning, connection, and vitality, that is what makes Okinawa so extraordinary. Of course, we cannot all become Okinawans. We live in different cultures, climates, and economies. But what we can do is carry forward the principles. We can eat with awareness, move with joy, seek connection, find purpose, and cultivate resilience. In this sense, the Okinawan secret is not theirs alone, it is a gift to the world. Imagine a society where elders are not sidelined but celebrated, where communities gather in mutual support, where meals nourish both body and spirit, and where even hardship is transformed into wisdom. That vision is not a fantasy. It exists in Okinawan. It shows us that another way of living is possible. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all is this: the good life is not complicated. It does not demand wealth, perfection, or endless striving. It asks only for balance, gratitude, and the courage to live gently but fully. From a small island in the Pacific, this message now travels across oceans, into our homes and hearts, asking us a simple question: how will we choose to live? As the sun sets over Okinawa, painting the sky in hues of gold and coral, the island whispers a story that belongs not only to its people, but to all of us. It is the story of resilience, born from hardship, joy rooted in simplicity, and longevity nourished by purpose, community, and gratitude. We began this journey by asking, why do Okinawans live so long? The answers, we discovered, are not hidden in secret potions or miracle genetics. They lie in choices so ordinary, so human, that they almost seem too simple. Eating modestly, moving naturally, caring for one another, rising each morning with a reason to live. Yet it is precisely in their simplicity that their power lies. The elders of Okinawa remind us that aging is not something to fear, but something to embrace. Wrinkles, gray hair, slower steps, these are not signs of decline but symbols of a life lived fully. To reach 100 years is not merely to survive, but to thrive, carrying laughter, wisdom, and love through time. And as we look at our own world, fast-paced, noisy, often disconnected, we see how urgently we need their wisdom. We are surrounded by abundance, yet plagued by overconsumption. We are connected by technology, yet starving for real human closeness. We chase success, yet often forget to ask why we live at all. Okinawa offers an antidote. It teaches us that longevity is not a goal in itself, but a byproduct of a meaningful life. That happiness does not come from excess, but from balance. That true wealth lies not in possessions but in relationships, in health, in peace of mind. Perhaps the greatest gift of Okinawa is not that its people live long, but that they live well. They show us that the art of life is not in adding more years, but in filling each year with connection, gratitude, and purpose. And this is a lesson each of us can begin to live today, wherever we are, with whatever we have. So, as we close this story, imagine yourself standing on an Okinawan street at dusk. You hear the distant beat of drums from a festival, the chatter of children playing, the gentle laughter of elders gathered beneath a banyan tree. You feel the warm evening air and the sense that here, life is not rushed, not wasted, but cherished. That is the spirit of Okinawa. May we carry it with us into our homes, our families, our communities. May we remember that to live long and to live well is not a dream for the few, but a possibility for us all. And may we find our own ikigai, our own reason to rise each morning, so that our lives, too, may stretch not only in years, but in depth, joy, and love. This is the timeless gift of Okinawa. Not just a secret to longevity, but a way to live beautifully,